This is Danny Brown Talks Phoenix. I am your host, Danny Brown. I am a realtor and CEO with Myriad Real Estate Group here in Phoenix, specializing and focusing on helping people buy and sell homes. Joining me today is Wendy Doris of Flippin Wendy Design. She's been on our podcast before, but the world is a wildly different place than when you were on our podcast last time. And you are actually doing very different things than when you were on our podcast last time. So thank you for joining us, Wendy. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Yeah.
The last time I talked to you, I was flipping and kind of dipping my toes in the Airbnb world. And now I'm pretty much strictly Airbnb and also hosting for other Airbnb owners. So I've kind of transitioned out of house flipping completely now, and concentrating on Airbnb. So I'm still in the real estate world, just in a different facet.
What is hosting Airbnbs for other people? What does that mean?
So basically just handling everything that happens at the house. They might have to handle some of the maintenance things, but I will answer guest questions, handle the bookings, change the listings and alter the listings, get photos for the listings.
Okay, so almost like property management, but for Airbnbs.
Yeah, it's like Airbnb management, I would say.
Yeah. That's kind of a big business. There's a lot of large formal companies that are doing that as well in the Valley. So very cool. What's the transition been like going from flipping homes, which is like your primary gig, to doing Airbnbs and VRBOs?
Well, the main difference is I'm doing a lot more as far as design and decor, whereas for the flip, I would do something maybe more subdued or something that everyone would like, or I would think a lot of people would like for a flip. So like a flip, you're not going to try to do some fun theme or whatever for like you would for an Airbnb. So that part's a lot different. I have to do a lot more with the furnishings and dealing with people actually living in the house rather than just preparing it for somebody to make it their own home. So that's a huge difference.
Yeah, I bet that suits your personality a little bit more as well, because with flips, like you said, you were kind of vanilla, right? You had a pattern and you kind of stuck to it, stuck with the same decor that was very popular. And with the Airbnbs, this gets you to be a little bit more creative, which I know that you like.
Yeah, it was really hard with the flipping because I started to go a little bit outside the box, and that was always really scary because you don't know if somebody going to like it and want to buy it, spend $500,000, $300,000 on it. But with the Airbnb, you can go a little bit crazier. So yeah, kind of helped.
Very nice. How many do you currently host right now?
Right now I host 17.
17, wow.
Yeah.
And are those all in Phoenix?
No, one of them's in Cincinnati. Let's see, 13 of them. 13 are in Phoenix and 3 are in Costa Rica.
Wow. Okay. So I knew about Cincinnati and Phoenix, but Costa Rica, that's super cool.
Yeah, that one's really interesting. A friend asked me to help him with the calendar and with just helping the guests, answering their questions. He had them on VRBO and Airbnb, and so the calendars weren't syncing. It was a huge confusion, I guess, to try to keep them all. There's a way to sync them, but anyway, I'm helping him with that, and it's a little slow now that no outsiders can get into the country.
Sure.
But I'm looking forward to that opening up because we just took that over right before pandemic started.
Yeah, I mean, so that kind of leads me into the topic at hand and COVID-19 and kind of the impact on the vacation rental world. So when did you first realize that the coronavirus was starting to make an impact on the vacation rental market?
I'm going to try to remember the date. I believe it was like maybe around March 7th or 8th or something. I don't know. March 13th was definitely a big day because that's when Airbnb started to allow full refunds no matter what.
Yeah.
So it was right prior to that when I think the NBA shut down and Tom Hanks said he had it. It was like 3 things, and then people started to cancel, and it was like a tidal wave of cancellations. And I feel like I feel a little bit lucky that being in the Airbnb business and people canceling their traveling plans like right away, I was able to kind of pivot and jump on that scenario and try to figure out how to make things work. Because if I wasn't in the travel industry, then I don't know if I would have recognized the signs of like what was actually happening.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It seemed like this series of events, it was, for like, I think for all of America, it really set in when Tom Hanks got sick, announced that he had it. He was in Australia at the time, but then, the NBA canceled, MLB shut down spring training, which was a really huge impact on, Phoenix and the surrounding cities. So it was like this series of events that happened very, very fast. Seems like. So, what you said that paying attention to it, you kind of pivoted. What things did you do? What did you put in place? How did you pivot?
So we had a total, we actually, I think, stopped counting the cancellations maybe the last 2 weeks, but we had 80 cancellations through the 17 properties and probably 90 now. So when we started to see that happening, we tried to immediately put our monthly pricing. Well, first of all, we lowered the pricing, the daily pricing from what was high season because of spring training down to low season prices. So a house that would have been, let's say, $249 would now be priced at $85. Like significant. We have a significant swing here for that month in particular, but so I put it all the way down to low season prices and then changed the monthly price for someone to book for the entire month. So at least to just try to cover our costs or at least get some income coming in. I know that those monthly bookers are there. They're always there. Our calendar just never open for it. So then after we started to get quite a few cancellations, enough where it was opening the calendar, I went to the people who were still on the calendar and fluctuating. Like, I'm not sure if I'm going to, I want to see what happens. We just asked them to go ahead and cancel so that we could completely open the calendar to get those longer short-term bookings, which is awkward. Like, we've never canceled on somebody before.
Well, so I know that Airbnb was giving everyone the option to just get out and get their money back. So as the property owner, did they give you guys authority to cancel on the bookings, or did you have to just make that formal request and then that renter would then cancel on their own?
It's always easier to have, it seems to be easier to have the guest cancel. First of all, on a regular scenario, the host to cancel is very bad. Like, you get penalized. So you never want to do that. So on my end, I'm like, I don't even want to chance it. Cause then if I get penalized and then I have to call into Airbnb, they were having an hour wait time just to talk to somebody. And so I didn't want to have to handle that. So I just asked the guests to cancel because on their end, it was very easy. They could put by March 13th at 3 p.m., they could click a little button that said, I'm canceling because of COVID-19, no matter what our cancellation policy was. So most of the guests were really accommodating. We explained to them, we have to cover our costs. We have to get through this, and we hope you understand. Or we would try to move them to another property that would be more suitable for all of us.
Sure. Yeah, I've noticed with all of this, it seems like for the most part, people have been extremely patient and understanding, more so than I think prior to all of this. I have heard that some of the owners of Airbnbs are actually putting together a class action lawsuit against Airbnb. Are you participating in that or paying attention to any of that that's going on?
I'm trying not to pay attention to much as far as that stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting by with what we have coming in. So no, I haven't done anything with that, and I actually had not even heard it. But what the Airbnb is doing or decided to do after the fact, when they just see what happened, is that they just let the guests cancel and they get all their money back with no. They didn't consult the host, or the hosts have their expenses that they have to pay too. So
Yeah.
it was very one-sided. So then what they went and did was put some money together and said, okay, we'll give you 25% of the bookings that were canceled. So they're going through one by one to each of those cancellations and then emailing us to tell us what we got. Now, of the 80 cancellations, I've gotten one email. So I'm not expecting much from that.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I think the lesson from a lot of this, even with what the federal government's rolling out with the CARES Act, is that any of us small guys should not rely on being taken care of. That we're on our own, really. And if you do get anything, it's great, but don't count on it. There's evidence of that all over the news, with even that PPP program that they rolled out through the SBA, and some very large corporations totally taking advantage of that system, and banks lending to their larger, like picking and choosing who they were going to lend to. And the person that gets screwed in the end is the little guy. And I'm sure that is probably the same within the Airbnb world as well.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I need to take care of myself or our properties. And so I'm not relying on anything like that. If we get money from Airbnb, that 25%, that would be great. That's like bonus. But luckily, this could be part of the type of houses that we choose. They are all the kind of houses that people will rent for a couple of months. So it's not like we have these luxury homes that you have to spend $10,000 a week, or, that you don't have $10,000 in expenses a month or whatever. Ours are pretty much, you can rent it and cover the expenses for a travel nurse or people between houses, somebody that needs a place to stay during renovation, that sort of thing. So
let's talk a little bit about that and who you're kind of targeting for those, what I would consider long-term, short-term rentals.
I don't know that I'm specifically trying to target anyone, but I know that that's who, whenever somebody requests, that's who it is. It's going to be the people who are in between homes, like they sold one and then they are waiting for their other one to close. They have the construction going on at their house, or travel nurses, for sure. We get a lot of those anyway.
Healthcare people are huge right now. I've heard of stories of other vacation rental owners pivoting and targeting doctors and nurses who are on the front line that don't want to go home to expose their family to any potential illness. So they're getting together with other doctors and nurses who are on the front line and renting some of those Airbnbs.
Yeah. So that you can actually target those specifically on Airbnb if you choose. So you can say, you can opt in. And so those people, kind of like you would opt in that you want to host work travelers, you can also opt in for the healthcare workers. Now, there's a whole protocol of how you have to clean and how you have to do this. And we're already doing the cleaning like that anyway, but there are some specifications that you have to do. And also I want to make sure that, like, some of mine, I was going to do it and then I kind of backed out because I was thinking, this person's going to have to use the community laundry. And so I wanted to make sure that I'm not bringing somebody in that could be infecting the entire condo community or whatever. So there's some thought that goes into it. But on a regular basis, on a normal basis, we would always host travel nurses. They're always coming into Phoenix. Oh, we also have college kids. or like grad school students that were, their schools over, they're not going onto campus anymore, or they're not allowed to be in the dorm. So now they're getting the Airbnb.
Oh, that's I didn't even consider that. That's a really great kind of subset of people to focus on as well. Are you also advertising these as short-term rentals on sites like Zillow and Realtor.com, or are you exclusively just doing it on Airbnb and VRBO?
Yeah, just Airbnb. We have 2 properties. No, the Costa Rica houses are on VRBO, and then we have 1 condo that's on VRBO. But other than that, I'm just on Airbnb, and they're pretty well booked, all of them.
Interesting. That's fantastic. I know we practice real estate, and one of the things that we focus on is helping people sell their current home in order to buy, and we do our best to keep it so that people don't have to move multiple times. I personally hate moving. I actually loathe it. So I'm very motivated to make it so my clients can go from house A to house B in a very easy way, but that doesn't always work out. So sometimes you end up having to, in a normal world, move in with family or find some sort of stopgap. So advertising short-term rentals to those individuals, like you touched on earlier, I think is another great avenue to play on. I mean, we have some clients right now that had to get out of Washington, hated being in Washington just in general, and then the sickness hit and it motivated them even more to get out of there. So they packed everything up and moved into a hotel, and this is a hotel in North Scottsdale, and they said the people that are in the hotel in North Scottsdale are not the type of people that you would expect to be in a hotel in North Scottsdale. And so they started looking at short-term rentals just so they could take their time in finding a house to purchase as their next home.
Okay. I was just thinking while you were saying that, it would be a great idea for somebody that's between homes to have like a pod or something like that you could literally plop down on the driveway of an Airbnb.
Yeah.
For that month that you have to stay there. Yeah. Well, a lot of the like houses that I have, they don't have HOA. So,
which is probably smart with Airbnb. HOAs and short-term vacation rentals tend to not mix well.
Right. Exactly. So, hey, Danny, let me ask you some questions.
Yes, please.
I actually asked some folks on Instagram, and I'm gonna tell you their questions. So I don't know how to say this one. At Slidy, SLEIDY, wants to know, when is the best time to buy? Are people not putting their houses on the market right now?
So, I mean, that's kind of a loaded question. I personally think the best time to buy is when it makes sense for you personally, regardless of what the market is doing. So I think it's very important when people are purchasing a home that they are living on 70% of their income, and 30% is towards savings and some of those and their other expenses. And so I think it's important to first thing have 3 to 6 months worth of your survival funds set aside. Especially, I mean, I think that's very important. Like now,
right.
Being able to cover your expenses for 3 to 6 months in case something bad happens. So I think that's first and foremost, that every American should have that. And I think the statistic is like the majority of Americans don't have more than $400 in their savings account. And that's really bad when something like this happens and you get laid off or furloughed. Like we said earlier, you don't want to have to rely on the federal government to make ends meet. So the first thing I would do is make sure that you have 3 to 6 months worth of your survival number set aside. And then making sure that you can afford that monthly payment. Nobody wants to be, house rich and money poor. So it's really important to make sure that that monthly payment fits your lifestyle and is something that you can take on a monthly basis. And then I don't think that purchasing your primary residence should ultimately matter in regards to what the market is doing at this point in time. Real estate traditionally has been a very safe long-term investment, and unlike the stock market, you don't see home values drop 30% in a day. It takes a long time for that to happen, and home values traditionally go up over time. I think the U.S. economy has had something like 58 recessions since we've been a nation, and only one of those, housing, was negatively impacted, and that was the last one. And Americans are very guilty of having a very short memory. So we think that every recession is going to be just like the last one. So the last one we had was due to poor lending practices, overbuilding, people, purchasing homes when they probably shouldn't have. There was a lot of fraud that took place. Like, it's been analyzed to death, but it was that recession was caused by the housing market. This one is totally different, and I don't think that home prices are going to be negatively impacted because of this. I think actually the housing market is going to pull us through this recession and be something that we can lean against going forward. And so if you kind of take those things all into consideration, buying your primary residence when it's the right time for you makes the most sense, because traditionally over time, it's going to increase in value. Your monthly payment's never going to change. It's a fixed rate for the term of your loan. Rent changes and fluctuates on an annual basis. And 9 times out of 10, that rent gets more expensive, not less expensive. So I think you buy when it's the right time for you. If you're an investor, I think buying right now is a fantastic time, as long as you are secure in your job and don't feel like you're going to potentially get furloughed or laid off. We have seen panicky sellers in this marketplace. So just a month ago, every property we were coming across was facing multiple offers, selling tens of thousands of dollars above its list price, and buyers were at a huge disadvantage. Well, now that COVID-19 is a thing, that balance of power has shifted from, it hasn't shifted 100% from sellers to buyers. We are still for Phoenix specifically, in a dramatic seller's market because inventory is so low. But what has changed in this market is buyer demand has also dropped because everybody's stuck at home. Lots of people have lost their jobs or have had their salaries cut in half. So the number of buyers in the market has gone down.
Or they're just waiting to see what happens.
Or they're just on the sidelines. But I looked at rates today. I predicted like 3 weeks ago that we would see fixed mortgage rates in the 2s. And I looked at mortgage rates today. Wells Fargo just put out that you could get a 15-year conventional mortgage in the mid to high 2s. That is incredible. 30-year fixed you can get in the low 3s. So this is a very advantageous time right now to be a buyer. If you have been thinking about buying, have been on the fence for a while, or if you're looking to buy an investment property, because this is a window of time where you've got panicky sellers, some sellers, and you've got sellers willing to negotiate more on price, willing to negotiate more on repairs. Just a month ago, we were having sellers tell us to go kick rocks in our repair requests. And now we've had sellers replace air conditioners, replace roofs. Like, they're doing extra things in order to get transactions together. They don't know what the future looks like. So if you've got your 3 to 6 months worth of savings set aside for a rainy day and you're confident in your job, then I think this is a moment in time where we've seen the balance of power kind of shift a little bit to where it's a little bit more advantageous. It's a little bit easier to be a buyer right now.
And do you see that it's mostly vacant homes that are listed now? Or
no, not at all. I mean, there's a lot of listings where the people still live there. The process of showing homes has changed slightly. So for us, for example, we're still actively showing homes. I showed homes last night. We are no longer driving clients in our own car. So we advise people to, even clients who are coming into town, we let them know up front that you should get a rental car for your protection and for ours. We're wearing masks when we're around people. We've got hand sanitizer and Purell wipes. We advise our sellers that if you're living there, we provide our sellers gloves, Lysol wipes, and booties. And then we also have a COVID-19 waiver form that we have any buyer sign certifying that they don't have any flu-like symptoms and they're not feeling crappy. And then we tell our sellers, unlock every door in the house, turn on all the lights, open the blinds, make it so that the buyers don't have to touch stuff if they don't have to. And then when you get home, use the Lysol wipes or spray that we gave you and wipe down commonly touched things. And we're requesting, buyers be very wary of what they touch. If you have kids with you, try to not have them touch things as well. And so far, knock on wood, everyone's been very, very respectful of that process and very conscientious of what they're doing.
I did go on a showing actually with somebody from your office, and he walked ahead of me and wiped all the handles, and I was like, this is awesome. I don't have to touch anything.
Yeah. And in some cases, if say we're showing a home that is relatively small, we're not going inside those homes with the buyer. So the buyer will go in on their own. We'll wait outside. I've told my guys, normally we'll walk around with the buyer behind them. Don't go into the bedrooms. Try to maintain that social distancing, that 6 feet or more space. Hang out in the main area of the house. Let them explore, and then wipe things down when you're done. So we're trying to be very careful of all of that.
Okay, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
From another Instagram follower. @Gentle Oblivion wants to know, is it a smart move to buy land at this time? If so, what kind and where?
So, I think buying land is always advantageous. It depends on what you're wanting to do with it. If you're wanting to build your own house on it, then things you want to be wary of are utilities already hooked up to the lot. What's the easiest, entrance ways to get to the property? The egress. Is there a sewer line nearby, or do you have to do septic? If you're looking to purchase land and flip it, and you're talking about small lots, no, I don't think so. Buying vacant lots to flip has just never really been a huge thing in Phoenix.
To flip the lot itself, or to build on it? To flip the lot?
Yeah, if you're just looking to buy a lot and hold it and then flip the lot without building anything, then I don't think that you'll see a very good return on your investment. If you're looking to buy a lot to build on and maybe sell a spec home, then absolutely. There are so few homes listed for sale in the greater Phoenix area that, if you purchase land now, you might be able to take advantage of a panicky seller. It's probably going to take you at least 3 months, if not, based on the amount of quality contractors and laborers that are out there, it's probably going to take you 6-8 months to have it be built.
The permitting alone will take forever.
And God willing, this will all be behind us by then. And so, you could take advantage of a panicky seller right now that wants to get rid of their land because they don't know what the future is going to look like. Build a house on it and use this downtime, and then hopefully COVID-19 is a thing of the past in 8 months, and now you're selling a beautiful home in what I think is going to be a seller's market on the other side of this.
Yeah, and my opinion on land, I've personally been looking for land for a while now. Not in Phoenix though, outside, kind of remote Arizona, just for myself, because I want to have a little place, a place where I can put either almost like a compound, but I got a million ideas, but I can't stop the ideas from coming. But I would love some land like that, or something that's up in higher elevation where we can go to cool off. But right now, if I were to find something, I I already like smaller homes, but I think it's even more of it's even a better idea to have something that's a little more manageable, where the price is not too high, so that, or the expenses aren't too high, whatever I put on it, that could get through something like this, if it happens again, right? So like a container home or something like that, where the monthly expenses aren't going to be very high or none, because you can pay for it in cash. And then you could rent, if another downturn like this happens, you can rent that out for, monthly, cover your expenses if you need to. And then on a regular market, use it as an Airbnb or a vacation home. But again, if you're doing vacation homes, Airbnbs or whatever, you just got to make sure that you are getting through, like your expenses are at a place where you can get through.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you always want to stay within your budget and protect yourself. I think the people right now who are in grave trouble, including large corporations, are the ones who've over leveraged themselves and, have used a lot of debt financing. You look at a lot of, like, the airline industry, for example, has been hit really hard, and they've spent all their money on stock buybacks when they could have easily taken tons of their profits and set aside for rainy days, but instead they were propping up their valuation for their stockholders. So I think I think you're right that you always need to do things that are within your scope and within your budget. There's always risk reward, so if you do take on some of that risk, the reward could be greater. But we were talking about before we started the podcast that I personally believe that this is fast forwarding some of the trends that are taking place in our world. And in talking with our clients, I think we're going to see a move more to the suburbs again. I believe that there was this big push for
a reversal.
Yeah, millennials wanted to live local, smaller homes, condos, townhouses, apartments that were all very centrally located so they could ride bikes to restaurants and all these things. And where we find ourselves today, I have countless friends who are in condos and townhomes that are on lockdown. All the amenities that they pay for are shut down. So they can't work out. They don't have a backyard. They can't go to the pool. They're stuck in these 9 to 1,200 square foot homes and can't go anywhere. I'm stuck in my house. I've got 2,100 square feet. I've got a pool. I've got workout equipment outside. I've got an office. My wife is working in the room next door in a makeshift office for her, and we feel very comfortable. And so I'm talking with a lot of clients that have found that they're stuck at home with their kids. Their house, if they have one, their starter home, they've decided is way too small and they need something bigger. Like I said, friends who are in condos, townhomes, apartments have told me as soon as they have the money for a down payment or as soon as it's over, they're buying something bigger. They need a house. So I think this is fast forwarding that kind of trend where you're going to see some of those millennials, Gen Xers start to finally relocate to the suburbs where they can get one of those McMansions at a much better price in case because this could circle back. We have no idea. This could circle back. There could be other pandemics after this one. I'm not a fearmonger. I'm not trying to suggest that there will, but I think that you'll see people push and want more space to have room and be comfortable in the home that they're in, and being forced to be at home 24 hours a day really shines a light on the inefficiencies of your current house.
That's true. I never thought about that happening. I was one of those people that moved to the city, and then we moved to Phoenix, and we're still at the city, but not like before. But I couldn't imagine being in a condo and have to go, that anxiety of having to go into the elevator just to get outside.
Right.
Like, that would be a lot of anxiety.
Yeah. So I think it's reasonable to believe that on the other side of this, there will be a push out to the suburbs.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, here's one more question
Okay.
from at Moss 205 wants to know, what's your opinion on doing a flip in this market?
if you can get a home at a reasonable price, and you could probably touch on this because you're the expert at flipping, from back in the day, I think you make most of your money on a flip on the purchase, not the sale. So you have to be able to get the home at a really good price. Right now, again, is a window in time where that balance of power has slightly shifted from sellers to buyers. So if you can get a seller to negotiate on that price up front, buy it at something that makes sense. And then the hard part, I think, is finding quality contractors right now to do the work. But maybe they're not as busy as they were a few months ago and have the time to spend doing renovations for you. And then by the time it's done, hopefully this will be behind us and you'll be able to catch that, again, what I think is going to be a dramatic seller's market on the other side of this. I think there's going to be a lot of pent up demand. So by timing it right, absolutely, I think that this could be a great time to buy a home and flip it.
I would agree. I do have some friends that are, in the middle of a flip that they already had. Construction is continuing. And I imagine that it's going to be attractive to contractors to be working in a property that is vacant, like a flip. Whereas they might be, I'm imagining, I don't know, but I would just imagine if I was a contractor, I would not really want to be taking on jobs where people are living in a house right now.
That's a great point.
Especially the places where the weather's not great.
Yeah.
And the kids can't go outside. But definitely there are people that can't afford their mortgage, or they can't afford, maybe it's owned by an investor and the tenant can't pay the mortgage or pay the rent. So they need to unload that investment. And so you could pick up something in this market, a panic seller, that would be something that you could flip. Now, what I would probably do if it were me is make sure that I have a couple of ways out. So, and I've been through a market like that was obviously way worse than this, the last recession. When was that? 2008. I had a couple of flips that I had during that. And if it were me, I would expect that maybe I'm going to have to furnish this and Airbnb it, like to the, nurses or whatever, which you're going to need some money for that to furnish. Maybe you're going to long-term rent it. So you renovate it and then you rent it for a year and then sell it. Or you could just try to flip it and see what happens. Obviously, you can put it on the market, see what happens. If it doesn't work, try one of your other ways out.
I think the problem that exists with flipping right now, if you don't have the cash, is the cost of money. People are being very, very careful with who they're lending money to. And I believe that even hard money lenders have probably tightened up. And I would imagine their interest rates are higher, not lower, during this time because they're taking on risk. And so if you are flipping, you have to make sure that you're able to carry and make that payment every month if you're doing a hard money loan. Because normally with flips, it's all about speed, right? You want to get in there, get it renovated, get it listed, and get it sold because you've got that monthly payment that's probably pretty high every month. So take that into consideration that the buyer demand is way, way down right now. And so if you are somebody that is looking to do a flip and can't carry the cost, so having additional outs, like you said, is really important because days on market are going to get a little bit longer right now because there's just not as many buyers in the marketplace. And the truth of the matter is we don't know when this will end. Everybody can speculate, and I'm hopeful that this ends at the end of this month and we start to see a slow rollout in Phoenix of when people can start going back to work. But we just don't know when all of this will end. So be just very careful of that. If you are trying to leverage and use other people's money, make sure that you can afford to carry cost on a regular basis.
Yes, actually, that's a really good point because normally, I have a whole episode about this financing part, but normally you would buy with hard money or private money just to get it, to do it quickly, because there's a lot of red tape with conventional financing. But then you would refi out with the conventional financing after the renovation's done. So you would want to, like you said, be very careful that you're going to have the equity that you need for that, or the money you can bring to the table, because is somebody going to lend to you, that investment property? And right now it's been 20 to 25% equity, or 20 to 25% down for conventional financing. So I don't know if that's changed in the last month, but for an investment property. So you would definitely want to make sure that you have that in mind.
And we are back. Sorry, folks, we had some technical difficulties. It's part of doing a podcast from our houses. So bear with us. And I think at this point, we've kind of lost track of what we were actually talking about. But I have just one last point to kind of make to your audience as well as mine, is that, again, this recession, what we're facing is very different than the last one. I do not think that we are going to see a flood of foreclosures or distressed sales. I put a video out last week talking about the state of the housing market and what I believe will happen going forward. And you can take lessons from previous peaks and valleys within the real estate market over the last 15 years, where the real estate market in Phoenix tends to operate anywhere from 6 months to 2 years behind what's happening in real life. So take, for example, the last recession we had, the Great Recession. Buyer demand peaked in 2005 and started decreasing, and we did not see property values go into negative territory until mid-2007. And nobody really, outside of mathematicians and data analysts, saw any issues with the housing market, because property values were still going up for the 2 years after demand started falling. So I think it's reasonable to believe that what we're facing right now is a healthcare crisis, not a problem with our economy. Everything was booming before this, and it's reasonable to believe that this will be short-lived, and the housing market won't have enough time to really see the ability to react. Sellers that we're working with right now are not doing drastic price drops. They're just kind of holding steady to wait this thing out. Sellers are holding off on listing their homes right now, for the most part, until this thing goes by. And again, that buyer demand is down. So when you already have supply as low as it is and demand dropping, everything is just kind of going to pause for the time being. And so that's my thoughts. I don't know if you see things differently, but I don't think this is going to last long enough to where we're going to see the housing market take a huge dip. And all the protections that were put in place post the Great Recession for homeowners are still in place. Homeowners have more equity than they've ever had before. So if they do get into financial trouble, they'll be able to sell their home and avoid going to foreclosure, avoid having to do a short sale. You have to work to be able to have your home foreclosed on right now.
I think the houses you're going to see go, a lot of the houses you're going to see go on the market are investment properties. Mm-hmm. So maybe a couple of my owners, the owners of the houses that I host for, are putting their houses on the market because the expenses are too high to be missing out on that high season. So, and that's not just those owners. On some of the forums I'm on, people are talking about, like, they can't, in Phoenix, people are still coming in. Nurses are still coming. It's a big city, but then some houses that people might have in a not so traveled area might not be able to sustain. So I think you're going to see this.
I'm talking directly about Phoenix, and I think you're right that I thought we would see an increase in inventory from the vacation rental market when this first hit. And what I've noticed is a lot of those people are pivoting, just like you are, to either monthly rentals or long-term rentals, because, for a year or more, because they also believe that this will be short-lived, and that on the other side of this, things will start to kind of go back to a little bit of normal. And you're absolutely right on the city of Phoenix that people are moving here constantly. And you could see a mass migration of people moving out of major high-cost cities to cities like ours that are a little bit more spread out, where you get space and room and have the ability to kind of expand a little bit.
Yeah, I think the people that are hurting right now are the ones that the expenses were a little bit too high to begin with. And now it's like, okay, let's put it on the market right now so we can try to get ahead of this.
Yeah.
Or they have a specialized property, like maybe a luxury property or something that is a destination property. Like you're going to go to that house in the middle of nowhere because I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's something special, something unique. And if they cannot hold that property through however long this travel kind of ban happens, then they might have to unload. So
what's interesting is I'm already seeing a lot of clickbait ads talking about or news articles that the price per square foot in Phoenix is dramatically dropped. And that is only influenced by the luxury market. So the luxury market has seen a huge hit because of this. A lot of those people have their money tied to the stock market. Your average American, the way they're tied to the stock market is their 401k. So they're not really, I don't think, necessarily care too much about the day-to-day fluctuations of the stock market. So we have seen in Phoenix a lot of the luxury homes be pulled from the market, and that market isn't selling as fast anymore. So when you remove those and you're looking at averages, you can make statistics do whatever you want to. And so if you are reading these news articles about drastic prices in the average price per square foot in Phoenix, take it with a grain of salt, because it is very heavily influenced by the luxury market, those homes not selling as quickly. And when you take homes that are, 1-2 million plus and take those out of the averages, well, yeah, of course, the price per square foot is going to go down. But for most of us, we're not buying $1 million plus homes anyway.
Mm-hmm. True.
So, yeah. Well, so to kind of wrap this up, you're all over social media. So if anyone from my audience, which I highly encourage them to follow you, how do they find you?
They can follow me on Instagram. It's at Flippin Wendy without a G. And I also have a website, flippinwendy.com. So I also have a podcast, which you can find there at that website. And so my listeners, if you guys want to follow Danny, you definitely should. He has a great insight on the market and also is a great realtor. So go ahead, Danny. You can tell them where your stuff is.
Yeah, you can follow my podcast is Danny Brown Talks Phoenix. You can follow me on Instagram. It's Danny Brown AZ. And my company is Myriad AZ _ on Instagram. And Abigail from my team does an awesome job of posting really great stuff on our business page. And I do try to really pay attention to what's happening in the economy and the housing market so that we can relay good advice to people and so that they can make the best decision for them and their family. Actually,
to tie this together, Danny helped me buy the Rattan Ranch, which was a flip. And I know you're probably sad that I didn't end up selling it, but it's a great Airbnb now and people are enjoying staying there. So I love it. I think it's a fantastic house. You did a wonderful job with it. And the people that we helped sell it, that you bought it from, love what you did to it, and that you've kept it and turned it into this fun place for people to stay in a really awesome area of town that I think that we both really like. So I think it's awesome. Yeah, we should find another one. We should. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. When this is all said and done and we can go out and play, I owe you a big hug, and stay safe and healthy. Please stay away, 6 feet away. This is hard I am a hugger. I love people and social interaction, and I only get to interact with my wife right now, and I'm sure she's tired of me. All right, fine. I'll give you a hug.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks,
Well,
everyone.
appreciate you. Thanks so much.